Here he is, Simon Brooke, fresh off working the French Open, joining me today on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, and clearly Simon is up to a few things. He is a TV guru, works in the space. Versatility is the name of the game for him, and we're going to show and see how that all plays itself out in our conversation today as we get to learn more about him. Simon, I know that there's been a few of these conversations that you've seen, have had some people on that you know. I appreciate you stepping in and being a guest as well and gracing us with your presence.
Oh, thank you for approaching me. I really appreciate it.
So, one of the things that I see, and we talked about this before we began, is this versatility. Sure, you work in sports, but you also do entertainment and you do news. So, there is such a variety, a diversity to what you want to do and what you are doing. To say what you are doing right now, to say what you thought you would be doing right now 10 years ago, how much of that is closely aligned and how might it be different?
Um, yeah, it's pretty well how I wanted to be. I suffer from massive boredom after about 5 or 6 weeks on the same sort of thing. So, so for me, being able to be on a tennis broadcast one day, doing a news program maybe the next week, that sort of thing. It's variety is the spice of life, as they say, and I think it also just keeps you fresh, and it changes the way you're having to think all the time because you're in a place that has totally different terminology one week from another. You're working with people who are disciplined in one area of the media, and then the next week you're working with people who are disciplined in the other way. One is scripted, maybe one isn't. You're having to think on your feet in a different sort of way, and I just love that whole variety. And people have said, "Oh, you're such an obvious freelancer because you do so many different things." And it's like, well, yeah, because that's one of the benefits of not having a full-time job is having the that day when you get an email that says, "Oh, what are you doing next week? Would you like to go to Nice or something?" Which happened to me a couple of months ago for a 4-day corporate job, and you go, "Yeah, okay, I can do that." Or you've got your jobs booked in for the rest of the year for things like US Open and stuff like that. And it's all of those little surprises. It just keeps it all fresh.
You said at the name at the beginning of all this that it's because of boredom that you're able and you want and you desire to have a lot of different avenues that which you work and that which you go about your work. When you were young, what were the earliest ways that you did cure your boredom?
Oh boy. I I don't know. I've always been one to get outside. So I'd get on my bike, go and play with friends, that sort of thing. I guess that's the obvious thing. But when as you get a bit older, I hate to say it, but I kind of threw myself into this medium that we're in a sort of a junior capacity with I was very lucky where we were because at school we had video clubs and stuff like that, so that was always fun to be a part of. There was a community television outlet that was just opening up in Sydney where I was growing up in Australia, and I kind of wormed my way in there and I was helping them cable the place, and then they showed us how to use the cameras and how to use the switcher and how to do basic editing, and I was like 16, 17 years old. So for me it was like, oh my God, this is so what I want to be doing. And so the boredom kind of didn't come into it because every day you did something along these lines. It was just something new. I mean, I'm unfortunately one of these nerdy people who I absolutely live the job that I do because I love what we do. I mean, we're just so lucky, really. I get paid for my hobby, if you like, and every day is just fun. But growing up, you kind of learning about all these things, and you're meeting the odd people that might be able to help you occasionally, I guess, as well. And I just never really got that bored doing that sort of stuff.
How do you choose to remember the events that you work on? So, whether it's a news or a sporting event, maybe you bring home a memento or there's certain stories that you compartmentalize. How does that marinate and sit with you in your memory banks as you
I've
work
got
different events?
well, so I have got after 40, what have I been in this business for? 43 years. I've got every single pass and
Wow.
lanyard that I they're in boxes just above me here. And I've threatened my wife. I said, the day I retire is the day I'm going to get them all out. There's a few hundred there, and they're going to be somehow put into some sort of a montage, and they're going on the wall or something. And I've got every single one from the first day I was in the network that I worked for in Sydney to just last week at the French Open. Every single one. So those are the mementos. I've also got a tennis ball from every major,
Wow.
one, as in just one from each major, just so that I'd like to just have. So I've got a Wimbledon, I've got a US Open, that sort of thing. And then I've just got it's more about the memories and the people, isn't it? Because you run into the same people sort of maybe once or twice a year, or sometimes on a more regular basis, and you just share the fun stories. And we were all just sitting outside in the bar the other night, and when we were in Paris, and there's a few of us there. We've all worked together for years and years and years, and we're just swapping stories and laughing. And we're laughing about people that we know. We're laughing about each other, and that's the best part of it is you're living and working with these people, and they really mean something to you because we're all kind of helping each other out to get a job done. But it's not like an office job where, oh, Fred's off this week, doesn't matter, he can do his job next week. It's not like that. It's like it's got to be done now, and I really mean like right now. And so you're all supporting each other, and when things go wrong, everybody pulls together, and you're relying on everybody's talents to help, pull it out of the mire, if you like. And at the same time, when it's all humming along, we're just enjoying ourselves, and we're having a laugh, a bit of banter, and that's the best part of this job is the people.
I would think there is that, as you said, a family atmosphere working
Yeah.
on some of these productions. And what does that look like? Obviously, you have the job that needs to get done, but
Mhm.
what do you and your colleagues do above and beyond the responsibilities of your job to get to know one another, to show you care for the person, not just the worker, and what that might look like?
It's, I guess it's just the way you work together. If you're, I don't know, I guess like if I'm doing something and someone just offers me that little bit extra that I can use to do what I want to do, where I'm doing a coverage or something that I didn't necessarily ask for and was a little bit beyond, that to me means everything. Um, when we kind of see each other, like I might have not seen the couple of the guys for a year, and you run into them at somewhere and you give each other a big hug and catch up with what's been going on. You're right, it is that kind of family kind of thing, but family without the baggage, if you know what I mean. So you've got all of that support, and I mean, obviously not everybody you're going to get on with the house on fire, but most people, if you're working that closely, you are. And then you've got all the in jokes. You've got all of the bits of banter, and you're laughing about various things. And while I've always said it'd be more funny if the talkback channel went to air, because some of the stuff while we're working is just brilliant. Um, but interestingly, it's like everybody can sense it when things are getting more tense, when you're getting to the end of a match, when you're getting to a point where that you're getting to the culmination of where you're going, and it all just tightens up, and everybody just stops laughing a little bit, and they just try that little bit harder, and everybody puts more into it, and it's a great feeling. And you don't have to say to people to do that; it just happens.
What do you, when you're in those tense moments, when there are the big points in tennis that you want to capture appropriately with your team, when you're pleased with how you captured said moment when it's tense and drama is unfolding at its height, say in a tennis match, what does that look like for you?
Um, it's I guess because everybody is totally focused at that time. Most of the crew are offering what they need to offer without you having to say anything. But for me, if it's running as smoothly as that, it's like the engine of a car just purring over as it's going down the highway at 80 miles an hour. And it's just everything's just happening nicely. But you're looking out for those little things that, of course, you don't know really what's going to happen. You can only put in place a few things for if this player does that, if that coach does that, if the wife or the husband does this, you can only put in so many safeguards. And then it's when something out of the ordinary happens, and somebody offers the shot, or a guy offers the replay, or the graphics guy, and it just all comes together. And that's just like magic. Yeah, it's just a wonderful feeling. And also you're carried by the crowd. And I think we noticed probably more than ever during the pandemic, when of course we didn't have crowds, how dead even the most exciting sporting event could be, because the crowd weren't there to carry it through with you. And you do feed off the crowd. You try not to, but you can't help it. So if you've got I don't know, if you're doing a match and you've got, say, 10,000 crazy people going for Nick Kyrgios in Australia, and they're just screaming for his name, and you cannot help but be drawn into that. And then you get that flavor you try to convey to the viewer, because you get that one shot of that one kid who's dressed up with all the stuff on and he's screaming and carrying on, or you get the woman whose head is in her hands because she can't stand to watch the next point in case he loses it or whatever. And that just creates the final sort of the icing on the cake for me.
You mentioned how you are able to show and harness the emotions of the fans when putting on a television broadcast with tennis. What about the shots that you will rely on to better capture the emotion of the players? How do
Mhm.
you really get inside their minds as a TV production team to show them in their moments of strife or their moments of ecstasy on the court?
Well, it's a drama, isn't it? And everyone will say this is unscripted drama. I know a lot of directors say the same thing. And the other thing we all tend to say is you've got to tell the story, because there is a story being told. And if it's even if it's a chapter within that story at that moment, it's still a story. Um, One of the things, I mean, we have all our replays, et cetera, but there are sometimes that something will happen and you just go, no, I don't want to replay. I just want to sit with this because I want to see what he's doing or what she's about to do here, or um, how they're reacting to their coaches, or how they're maybe just alone on that court and trying to come to terms with what may have just happened. And it could be a moment of ecstasy, or it could be a moment of complete disaster for them. And there are times that is far more interesting than watching a replay of a shot that you've just seen. Um, and I think that's the best way you can do it. The technology we have now. I mean, the amount of facilities we have to be able to play statistics, Hawkeye analyses, replays, you name it. And sometimes you kind of just want to just say, no, just wait for a second here. Let's just sit with this person and watch what they're going to do. And that's kind of trying to pick those moments. We don't always get it right, but we try to. And when we do, it's lovely. And if we miss it, then we wait for the next one.
When you do capture appropriately those moments, if I was, and you mentioned this, let's say after a few matches, you and I are at a bar in Paris after a day at Roland Garros, where's our conversation going to go? In recapping the day, say I was working with you and we were looking back at what we did from that day.
Um, Quite often we won't. We'll just talk about anything else. I know that sounds like a cop out, but most of the time we're just talking about other stuff. I mean, we might remark on certain things or whatever, but I think also you got to remember, especially with something like tennis or cricket or something, it's not like football where it's 2 hours and it's over. You could be there for 8, 10, 12 hours. And by the time you come out of that control room and these guys have come out of whatever room they've been or off a camera or something, we kind of want to just talk about anything else but what we've just been doing. I do think about it. There are times I've gone back to my room and thought, oh, what did you do that for? Or why didn't you see that coming? Because I'm my harshest critic. And I'm sure I'm not the only person to have said that to you. But um, there are times I've come out of a production and just gone, "Oh, I'm really pleased with that. That went well. I'm really thrilled, and the guys were fantastic, and everybody just." And so I kind of do that in my own head more. And I always, you always thank everybody, and you make sure, and sometimes you might just get someone aside and just say, "What you did there was absolutely brilliant." Um, uh, but for the most part, um, I think we all want to just talk about anything else by then.
From what I can gather from what you're saying, is that beyond that, you clearly, if all the books on your shelf, if that clues me into you and your personality, you must be an avid reader.
Yeah, but I, I live with another avid reader. Son of, and I'm the son of a very avid reader. Um, and I I tend to read a lot of novels and some factual stuff, but also I just love a good murder mystery like The Next Person and that sort of thing. And I do that to try to send myself off to sleep at night sometimes. That's that, especially if you're traveling and you're on your own in the room and you just want to just read something just to so you can just nod off, and on planes and things like that. So yeah, I do enjoy reading, but I actually quite like autobiographies of people whom I've either some of whom I've met, but most of whom I just have watched. And my son knows that. He always buys me, well, not always, but he quite often buys me autobiographies for Christmas and stuff because he knows the sort of things I really like. And so, yeah, and you kind of get into what their history is and what made them who they are, and someone you may have watched on television for 30 years, and then you realize, wow, I didn't realize they had that sort of background. So yeah, I'm a bit of a reader, but I'm also a watcher. We love watching films and um, series and things like that. And Netflix is not very far away normally in our house or something along those lines. And you get a good character-based drama. Um, Absolutely love it. So yeah, we've always got something on the go.
What's the style of writing that you find yourself most drawn to when being entertained with a book in your hand?
Again, character-based. If it's a really well-drawn characters. Um, and things that are just slightly left field. I mean, I've just finished reading a book that my wife actually gave me to read because she had it, and it's basically a mystery, but it's all about art forgery and what goes on in the art world, and it's based on true events, and then they build a story around it. And I started reading, thought, this is actually quite good because you're learning a lot as you go, but also it was just different from the usual sort of whodunit, but it was kind of a whodunit. So just something with a little bit of just something special to hang on, other than the usual kind of guy gets shot, who shot him, that sort of thing. So that sort of mystery I quite like, and I'm currently reading the Harold Fry book where he goes on a long walk in England, to deliver a letter to a friend without actually preparing to go on the walk. And uh, he's a man who's just retired. He's really got not much else in his life, so I'm sort of learning about his character as he goes. I'm quite early in that, but I'm looking forward to seeing where it all goes. That sort of thing as well. It's just something that draws you in, and then some factual stuff that I occasionally pick up and quite enjoy learning from as well.
When was the last time you went on a long walk in
Oh, I
England?
do it all the time. You've asked the right question there. I'm about to come on. So I love walking. I kind of, this has become my new thing. I've always enjoyed going out and being outside, and we live in the countryside, so we're quite lucky. And 2 years ago, there's a walk here called the Coast to Coast Walk, which is 200 miles from west coast to the east coast of the UK on a narrow part of the island, obviously. And I did that over 15 days. And it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life because it's just you walking. And you take in so much more when you're just walking step by step. You can think of so many things. You meet people, you see life at a completely different pace than if you're zooming past in a car. And I did another one in Wales last year, and I'm about literally what's today? Thursday. I'm on Sunday. I'm flying to the Faroe Islands in the mid-Atlantic, mid North Atlantic, and I'm joining a group there, and we're doing 8 days of walking there, and we're sleeping on a sailing ship and stuff. So that's going to be like totally different and out of my comfort zone.
What are you expecting to happen on that trip and what that's going to be like?
It's going to be a little different because it's the first time I've done one that's organized. But a friend of mine in the States who also is into his outdoor pursuits, he actually said to me, "You've got to do this. This is so up your alley." So I looked into it and I booked everything. And I think the nice thing about it is I'm probably going to meet people who are into a very similar sort of idea as I am as to living outdoor, not living outdoors, but being outdoors and just enjoying the outdoors. Um, and just experiencing a place that I'm never probably going to get back to. I mean, it's a set of 18 volcanic islands, between Iceland and Scotland, and it's just buffeted by the wind and the rain constantly. So it's not exactly the greatest place to go in July or June, July, but there you go. Um, but I expect to just be completely taken away by the place. I really do. I'm so excited about it, and it's gets you. And again, when you're doing this job, you you're so completely enveloped in what you're doing that when you get a chance to take off and do something like this, and the coast to coast walk was the best anecdote to that of all, because you're completely removed. Yes, you've got your phone with you and stuff, and if the phone somebody emails you for whatever, and you might answer it that evening and stuff, but you are it's just you walking along. And as someone said to me, they said it's life at 3 miles an hour, and it's completely different. And they're so right. And the stuff that I noticed that I never would have seen had I been with someone or driving through or whatever, you just appreciate things at a completely different level. And it was possibly one of the greatest holidays I've ever taken. So I've made a point of doing one of these every year from now on. Some overseas, some here in the UK.
I get the feeling, Simon, that when you're living out these experiences, that it's an outlet for you to get outside of your head. When you're working, it is always, 10, 12-hour days, and you've got to be on your game. You've got to be focused. You've got to be concentrated with every little detail, and everything has to be a certain way. And then you're allowed to free yourself and go out in nature and do that. This freedom that you feel when you're out there, how much of it do you feel is a way to get outside of your head? And how much, to what you said, is are those life moments when life slows down at its most?
That's often what it is. It's just life just slowing down a little bit. My wife will tell you I'm nicknamed the dog around here because I'm like, oh, I've got to get outside, I've got to get outside, I've got to do this. Yeah. Um, but when I'm out doing something like that, you can only walk so fast, and you can stop, and you're kind of in charge of your own existence at that point. No, nobody can really tell you what to do. And so for me, it's just a matter of just taking in things in a different. I mean, I love getting on my bike and going for a ride. I love getting on the tennis court and having a hit on the tennis court. I did it luckily today, and it's all those outdoor sort of pursuits. And I'm not someone who goes camping or anything like that. I don't do all that sort of thing. I'm just someone who likes being outdoors a lot. And when you can just clear your mind, it's like if there's something that's really bothering you, I've always found the easiest way for me to at least deal with it to a certain degree is not to sit around and do all this with the spinning of the wheels. And that is to go for a walk, go for a bike ride or something. And I'll come home after maybe 40 minutes or an hour or so. And I won't have solved the problem, but I'll feel better about it. And I guess and I can't explain why this is. I just know it is. And the other thing I discovered when I did the coast to coast, I started writing. Like I was writing this, I ended up writing a blog, which I wasn't actually going to do. And I was posting on Facebook every day. And I had all these people going, "Oh, this is really good. This is really funny." And oh, it's really keep going. I'm like, and then I had pressure on myself to, oh, I've got to do this again. But I found it quite easy because I was so in love with what I was doing that the words just kind of flowed out. And it wasn't like a huge thing. It was maybe 5 6 paragraphs every day, but it was a kind of way of sharing what I was doing with everybody who cared, anybody who cared. And also it was a way of re-experiencing it for myself, because when you write it down, it's kind of like sharing it back to yourself, if that makes any sense. I don't know quite how to explain that, but I found that it just was it was a lovely way to finish each day. So I did it last year as well. I'm not sure if I'll do it on this one because I'll be with different people, and well, there's a dozen of us doing this trip. But then that'll be different because we'll be sharing it in a different way. We'll be all talking amongst ourselves probably of an evening. But I just find it a wonderful outlet, and I just hope I can keep doing it for years to come.
Those blogs, it seems as if there's a benefit personally for you in order to recreate the moment, to relive what you experienced. But when you see, as you mentioned, the reaction that people outside of yourself have had when they read these blogs and they live through your experiences, what do you think the underlying messages that you're giving off to them when they're reading these things, what that is?
I'm having a great time. I'm happy. Um, Life's good. I've got my health. I've got a great family. I'm married to a wonderful person. Got a great son. My mum's still around. She lives in the same village that we're in now, and I get to see her quite regularly. And it's I've got friends who I've known since I was at school. Life's really good in that respect. I mean, I'm so lucky because we get back to Australia every year for the AO, and I grew up there. I left. I went through all my schooling there and started my career there and everything. And I've got a load of friends back there who I've known since I was like 8, 9 years old, and there's a group of us that are still in touch, which is quite incredible when you think about it. It's like, and a number of them have visited us here and stayed over and stuff. And it's wonderful because the older you get, the more you respect. Sorry, the more you respect, but the more you treasure those friendships from when you were kids or young adults, because they're the ones who've stuck with you the whole time. I mean, my closest friend is someone I've known since the fifth grade, and he and I are like brothers. Yeah, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So, I just absolutely love that. And we don't talk about our work when we get together. We just talk about stuff, whatever's going on. And we know so much about each other, all of these people, because we've been in and out of each other's lives at various times throughout all the years. So we kind of there's so many things that we can talk about that are common ground. And that's wonderful, and it was tough because we moved over to the UK when my son was 4, so he was able to grow up with his friends here. He now lives in America. Who knew? Um, but, um, but we've kind of created a social life here, obviously, but there's still a social life for myself in Australia, and my wife is American, and so she has her friends there, and we managed to kind of see different people at different times. Either we go there or they come here or something. So those connections never die. And that's really important to all of us. And we also got to like each other's friends, which is nice as well. So yeah, it's kind of it's the essence to everything, isn't it, really? Because I'd hate to just be doing all this work and then coming home to an empty house and not really knowing anybody. Yeah, I think that'd be just awful.
It would, and you have all of these connections. One of them you mentioned was your son and lives in the United States. Even though he's grown up now, how do you strive to show up for him, even at this stage of where he is and you being his father?
Well, we're lucky because we do get to see each other a few times a year. So I get over for the US Open, so that's a month, and I get to see him a few times during that month. He comes over for Christmas, so we get to see him then. There's normally another trip somewhere in there, maybe Thanksgiving or something that we might go over there for, or he may come back for something here or whatever. So, like last year, we saw each other like 5 different times throughout the course of the year. Um, and he's very close to his mum and to me, and we chat obviously occasionally on the phone and stuff like that as well. And so uh, it's kind of like, I mean, it was quite funny because he was living with us, and then I'm moving out of home. Where are you going? America. Oh, you're not just going to go to London first? No, 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 no. You're not going to do that. You're going to go to New York. Um, and I guess we're very proud of him, and he knows that, and we just really wish the very best for him, and we try to support him in whatever way we can, and often that's maybe just with words, which is what you need because you need that encouragement. I mean, I was when I started working in telly, and I was 19, and my parents were very supportive in as much as they were happy for me and they were interested in what I was doing, and we've tried to do that with him, and I think I know he does appreciate that, but at the same time we don't want to be all on top of him all the time because that's just not what we're there for. So he's made his own life, and I guess we're lucky that these days communication is so easy with FaceTime or WhatsApp or whatever. It's just so quick and easy and free that you can chat for hours if you want to. And there'll be times I'll be in the car at 10 o'clock at night and the phone will ring, it'll be him, and we'll be chatting while I'm driving home or something. And we're just talking about anything, politics or what we've been up to or all sorts of stuff.
I feel like as we wrap up this conversation, Simon, we could be talking for hours. Just the way this thing is flowing, and we're going to some really cool places and really getting to the heart of this adventurous side of you and the creativity that shows itself in a variety of different mediums. And then at the beginning of the conversation, as we were discussing, the versatility, the openness to do different things, and then to have such a cohesive ecosystem of a support system around you, whether that's your family, your direct immediate family, or those you work with. And what an honor this was to have you on. And again, this wasn't, and we've talked about this, Simon. Like, I do these conversations because I think there are elements to take that can, from our dialogue, that can be inspirational to other people. It's not so much like a, hey, look at me, look at me. It's you have untold stories that can help other people. And I feel like there are many in there dotting our conversation throughout that a lot of people are going to enjoy and take note of and learn from. Simon Brooke, I'm Bryan Fenley. This was a blast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.